Hi, my name's Lilika. When it comes to studying for your exams, the question of which studying techniques you should be using isn't really even a debate anymore. The studies have shown that there are specific studying techniques that are just way better than most of the standard studying techniques that students tend to be drawn towards. And in this video, I'm going to cover 5 different studying techniques that you can use that science backs up that will really help you to be able to remember information long term and be able to retrieve that information on command when you're asked a certain question in your exam paper, whatever the subject may be. When it comes to studying for exams, there's a lot of content that you need to revise and get through before your exam comes, and that can be super stressful. If you don't know what you're going to do every day, chances are you'll end up procrastinating and end up more stressed out than you would have been in the first place if you just started studying. So I would suggest watching this video that I made on planning. It's super in-depth and really goes into the detail and the nitty-gritty. And as a bonus, I give you a free template for the specific schedule that I use that you can implement in your learning to be able to plan more effectively, to study more effectively with a lot less stress. Okay, after you've got your planning out of the way, the first studying technique that you can use, which you'll know I'm a big advocate for, is active recall. The problem with most studying techniques is that they're pretty passive. Reading and rereading, for example, are really laborious and mind-numbing tasks that doesn't really engage your brain much. Your brain stores information a lot more effectively in the long term when it's more actively involved in your learning. It's a lot better to do a more strenuous task as opposed to one that feels easier, because that really engages your brain, which promotes learning. I'll leave a link in the card that you can click on to go to the video that I made on active recall. It's a super helpful and effective technique, and I'd really suggest you go check that video out. Number 2 is spaced repetition. Again, this is one I talk about quite often, but spaced repetition involves spacing out your learning. Studies have shown that waiting a bit before attempting to recall newly learned subject matter can actually promote long-term memory consolidation when it comes to your memory on that subject. Spaced repetition is based off of this curve that a dude found with an equation and everything that basically graphically displays the decay in your memory over time after new information is learned. So obviously you don't want to forget information, so you want to recall the information soon enough after learning it so that your brain doesn't just entirely delete that piece of information. However, studies have also shown that there's kind of this ideal time at which point your brain just remembers the information, but it is super difficult to actually recall that information. This is because newly learned information is stored along weak branches. So if you space your learning out over multiple days or weeks, and you recall that information at specific times you set out for yourself, your brain will be a lot more likely to strengthen those neural pathways to be able to make future recall of that information a lot easier, and your memorization of that subject a lot better in general. The way I went about using spaced repetition was with this flashcard technique that I covered in a video that I made. Again, I'll link that in the cards. Spaced repetition is especially useful when it comes to revising information that you learned a while ago before your exams. So if that's where you're at right now, I'd suggest you go watch that video. The third studying technique that you can use is one called elaboration. This kind of ties in with active recall, but elaboration is essentially making a subject your own. Instead of just simple recall, you try to connect the new information to information you've already learned and try to draw parallels between it and the bigger picture of the subject as a whole. The best way I found you can go about doing this is, if you have time, to just write a short essay on a certain new concept that you're learning. For example, if you're learning about quantum mechanics and the different spins that a particle can have, instead of just writing down the facts, go do a bit of research on quantum mechanics as a whole and maybe write just a short essay, like 2-3 pages on that subject, and you'll find that your understanding of the subject as a whole is a lot better, and that'll make it a lot easier to learn new information since you've fleshed out what you know a lot more. So there's a lot more substance to stick new information into, if that makes sense. The fifth studying technique that you can use that science backs up is one called dual coding. Dual coding is a theory that postulates that the formation of mental imagery aids in learning. According to this theory, there are 2 channels for the processing of information: visual imagery and verbal associations. And if both channels are used simultaneously in learning, the likelihood of future ease of recall of the information is a lot higher. Dual coding is often used by teachers in classrooms, so if you want to learn more about that, again, I'll leave a link in a card on the screen right now that you can click on. In the video that I made quite recently actually, I go through a few simple techniques that you can use to implement dual coding into classroom learning, but also into your own learning if you are someone who self-studies. But that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed and found it helpful. If you have any questions at all, feel free to leave it in the comments below. I'm super active in there and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. If you liked the video, give it a like, subscribe if you really enjoyed it. I'll leave a link in the description to each separate video that I mentioned in this video, so you can go check them out. But that's the end of this one. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one and good luck on your studying journey. There's a lot of work that you need to cover and, what do you call it? Retrieve, revive, repeat, revise.